I think most systems try to teach you what to say. Coach tries to train you how to think.
We had rebuilt our sales training 3 times, but it kept breaking. So our VP of product decided to stop patching it and build something completely different in just 9 days. I sat down with Milos to hear the full story.
We had already rebuilt sales enablement 3 times. This means new decks, new Notion pages, new training flows. And every time it looked better and kind of worked the same. Then in one meeting, our sales ops lead pulled up the Notion page and it instantly hit me. This thing was perfectly organized and completely unused. That was my aha moment. Not because the content was bad. It's because it required people to go in, find it, remember it, and apply it later. Who does that? No one does that. At least not consistently, right? So the shift was simple, but uncomfortable.
I wanted to know what finally made him stop trying to fix the content and fix the system instead.
I personally stopped asking how do we improve the content, right? And I started asking how do we make learning happen without relying on discipline, as in the discipline of the individual, right? What I was absolutely determined not to do is repeat more of the same, right? Build another static system that depends completely on motivation, like individual motivation. Motivation per se is very unreliable. Systems shouldn't be.
So I asked him to walk me through what Coach actually is and what it's like to use day to day.
Yeah, coach is basically a sales manager that never forgets to follow up. You know, if you're using it day to day, it feels like this. You get a message, a short scenario, real situation, and a question. We're not talking about multiple choice. This is not a quiz, right? It's not like Duolingo style, right? It's a real question and it forces you to think. Then you answer, and then it doesn't just say you're right or you're wrong. It pushes back. Why did you say that? What would you do if the customer responded this way? Are you optimizing for speed or for deal quality value, right? That's the difference. It doesn't test recall. It develops judgment. And I think most systems try to teach you what to say. Coach tries to train you how to think. And this is why I believe it works, because it behaves like this, like a coach. It asks, listens, challenges, and then follows up, right? And now comes the key, right? This happens every day. It happens in small doses, and it happens where people are already converging, which is Slack. So we're meeting people where they are.
One thing that surprised me was that he didn't just use one AI tool for everything. So I asked him how he decided to use which tools and why.
Using one AI for everything is usually the wrong move. I've split my AI usage for this into 3 different roles. ChatGPT I use for structure and thinking, to develop that single source of truth about what Coach is, what it's supposed to do. Then we used our internal agent that's based on OpenClaw, built by our CEO, that has access to our data. And this was for me for real world grounding. And then Claude is what I use to build the coaching conversations. The logic is sort of like this. ChatGPT kind of created building systems, like architecting. That's at least my 2 cents. It helped me define what does good coaching even look like, and I based Coach on a personality of a famous NBA coach. But then ChatGPT doesn't know our deals, so I actually used our internal OpenClaw agent to pull in real data from Gong, where all the calls are at. These are actual calls, real objections from customers and prospects, right? Real patterns. That gave us the truth. And then Claude kind of handled the interaction layer, the actual back and forth coaching. But it's just was just better at holding a conversation, asking follow-ups, adapting in real time. If you try to force one tool to do all three, you get something that's kind of okay at everything and great at nothing. I think good AI usage isn't about picking the best model. It's about assigning clear roles to different models.
Nothing ambitious goes perfectly, so I asked him what broke and what he learned from it.
Well, for example, I accidentally built a system that worked all weekend on problems that didn't exist. We had a cron job running. It was supposed to improve user profiles over time. Instead, it just started hallucinating. Thought the profiles were corrupted, started fixing things that weren't broken. It ran continuously. It burned tokens, created noise. By Monday, it had confidently optimized nonsense. The fix was like 80% of bash. We removed the ambiguity, made the process deterministic. For example, you really don't want your agent to keep touching a JSON file that is supposed to have a clear structure and expect it to keep that structure. Think in this context, a learner profile. This was the lesson, right? AI is great for, let's say, judgment, but it's terrible for precision tasks without guardrails. And we know this very well from our work here at Nutrient because, we do all kinds of document processing, before AI gets a hold of it, and think about it like this. When you want to read everything from a document and give it to an LLM for some sort of reasoning, you want to make sure that reading is always deterministic, right? It needs to always give you the right structure, not miss any information. Well, let's say that was the problem with my agent reading the learner files. It would just hallucinate a bunch of things, right? And not to mention writing back. I would say making parts of the agent deterministic would have made probably weeks of future pain. And if you're thinking about designing an agent, you should definitely think about making sure that everything that should be deterministic stays deterministic, and you're not allowing the agent to, let's say, make a judgment call in that sense.
I asked him what actually made training stick, because it turns out the problem was never really the content.
No one remembers a 35-minute training video. It's those things, we all get those, like security trainings, etc., and there's been a whole lot of innovation in this space. I think a lot of companies also think that enablement fails because content is poor quality. That's not the case. It fails because many reasons, like, for example, teaching information, stuff that people are expected to regurgitate, versus teaching a thinking pattern, right? Training the brain, training the mind. It's the worst part about it, whatever you do, is if there's no enforcement, right? There's no reinforcement of the knowledge. Think about that 35-minute training video. You watch it once, maybe twice, and it's gone. You don't repeat this. Who's going to go back to rewatch this, right? You're not going to apply it. There's no feedback loop here, right? Compare this to 5-6 minutes a day, real world scenario built based on real data, at least like a question or an exercise, and then a pushback, actual feedback in real time, every day. This is how behavior can be influenced. It's not through intensity, a 35 minutes, 1 hour training video. It's through consistency. It's value that compounds over time. And in practice, I think it looks like this: small inputs, right? Every day, very high frequency, immediate feedback, and then real world context. It feels closer to working than to studying. I can compare it to this. You don't go to a gym once and 3 hours hard exercise. You go for like 20 minutes, but you do it consistently. Sometimes you go for an hour, but you do it 3 times a week. That's what we built, essentially. It's compound value.
9 days, a Mac Mini, and a pretty important reframe about how we think about training people. If you want the full story, Milos wrote a full article that's down in the description. And if you're building something similar, be sure to drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear about it.